John lives with his wife, Nancy, and his stepson, Sam. One day, suddenly, John is found murdered. Nancy calls Detective Mayhul immediately.
Did John have any illnesses or enemies?
He wasn't sick, just allergic to tea. And we are new here, so he didn't have any enemies.
Mayhul carefully examines the body.
He was poisoned. Where were you all?
Sam says,
I don't know anything. I was out for work and just got back.
Nancy says,
I was sleeping in my room, so I don't know anything either.
Chef says,
I was in the kitchen making tea for Mr. John. I don't know anything.
Mayhul listens to everyone and figures out who's lying. But can you figure out who's lying? The answer is the chef, because Nancy mentioned earlier that John was allergic to tea, so why would the chef make tea for him? This means the chef is lying. Mayhul catches him. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Emily, Jack, Alex, and Nick were all partying at Emily's house. Suddenly, they hear the sound of Nick falling down the stairs. The others rush over and see Nick lying face down on the floor. Alex checks him and realizes he is dead. Alex immediately calls Detective Mayhul to the crime scene. Mayhul arrives and carefully examines the crime scene.
Who all were here when Nick got murdered?
No murder happened, sir. He died from falling down the stairs.
No, he was murdered.
Can you figure out how Mayhul can be so sure that Nick was murdered? Think carefully. When Mayhul examines the dead body, he notices handprint on Nick's back. This means someone pushed Nick down the stairs, indicating he didn't fall accidentally. But who could be the murderer? To find out, Mayhul asks all three to show their hands. Can you figure out who the murderer is by looking at their hands? Think carefully. Both Emily and Jack have yellow paint on their hands. Nick also had yellow paint on his back, and the handprint on his back is quite large. Emily's hands are too small to match the size of the handprint, but the handprint matches the size of Jack's hands. This means Jack must have pushed Nick. Mayhul catches him. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Around 3 a.m., John's house is robbed. The next day, John calls Mayhul to his house.
Do you suspect anyone who might have committed the robbery?
Yes, sir. I suspect 4 of my neighbors.
Based on John's information, Mayhul calls all 4 neighbors to John's house and interrogates them.
What were you all doing last night?
First, Adam says,
Sir, I went to a friend's party and returned only in the morning. I don't know anything about the robbery.
Jacob says,
Sir, I was sleeping at my house. How would I know that there was a robbery at 3 a.m.? I even got up to drink water. If I had known, I would have gone to help.
Oscar says,
I was at my office, working overtime, sir. Please don't involve me in this robbery case.
Paul says,
I went out to meet a friend last night. I don't know anything about this robbery.
Mayhul listens to all 4 statements and realizes who the thief is. Can you figure it out, Detective Army? Actually, the thief is none other than Jacob. Jacob mentioned that the robbery was happening at 3 a.m. when he got up to drink water. How would he know the exact time of the robbery if he wasn't involved? This means he was the thief. Mayhul catches him, searches his house, and finds all the stolen goods. Let's see the next puzzle. During a heavy rainstorm in the city, a prominent businessman, John, is murdered. The murder happened inside his office. The next day, Mayhul arrives at the crime scene to investigate. Mayhul questions John's manager.
Who was in the office last night? Call everyone here.
The manager calls 3 people. Who were in the office at that time? Ryan says,
I went to meet Mr. John at 11 p.m., but I didn't kill him. He was fine and talking to someone on the phone at that time. So I took my car and went back home.
Mark says,
I was at the main gate due to the heavy rain. I stayed inside the office. Then, after getting drenched, I took my car and went home.
Adam says,
I finished my office work on time and went home because the rain was getting really heavy.
Mayhul listens to all 3 and then goes to the parking area to check their cars. He immediately understands who is lying. Can you figure it out? Comment your answer, Detective Army. Take a close look at their cars. Under Adam's car, there are no water patches. If Adam's car had been moved from where it was parked, water would have splashed underneath it, similar to the wet patches found under Ryan's and Mark's cars. He lied about going home. He was actually here and seized the opportunity to murder John. Mehul slaps him hard and he confesses to his crime. Let's move on to the next puzzle. One evening, a robbery occurs at the city's largest bank. Around 5 crore rupees and a lot of jewelry are stolen from the vault. Mehul arrives to solve the case. Mehul asks the bank manager.
Who was in the bank last night?
Manager.
Only the employees were here. They are on their way and will arrive shortly.
After a short while, everyone is present in front of Mehul.
When did you all leave the bank?
The guard says first.
Sir, I was at the gate the whole time.
Ethan says.
I was cleaning the bank, sir. I don't know anything.
Jack says.
Sir, I have the vault key. I personally locked the vault, so I don't know who broke it and stole the money.
David says.
Sir, I was the last to leave the bank, but I don't know who did the robbery. I didn't hear any noises.
Can you figure out who committed the robbery by listening to the statements of all 4 and observing the details? Think carefully, Detective Army. Mehul, upon examining the vault, immediately understood that the robbery was committed by Jack. Since Jack had the key, if he had unlocked the vault normally, he would have been caught. That's why he broke the vault to steal the money. But how did he know that the vault was broken into rather than using a master key to steal the money? That's how his lie was exposed. Mehul arrests Jack. Let's move on to the next riddle. In a prominent hotel in the city, a well-known businessman, Mr. Smith, is found murdered. Detective Mehul arrives at the crime scene to investigate. Detective Mehul asks the hotel manager.
Who did Mr. Smith meet and talk to yesterday? I need to meet with them.
Receptionist Roy.
I was at the reception until 10 p.m. Mr. Smith called me for room service at 9 p.m.
Room service boy Sam.
I delivered Mr. Smith's order to his room at 9:15 p.m. He was fine at that time and watching TV.
Neha housekeeping.
I was cleaning on their floor at 9:30 p.m. I didn't went into their room, so I don't know anything.
Mehul listens to all 3 and then heads to the control room to review the hotel's surveillance footage. After watching the footage, Mehul identifies the murderer. Can you figure out who is the murderer? The murderer is Sam. When Mehul checked the CCTV footage, he noticed that Sam didn't have the room service tray in his hand and was entering Mr. Smith's room alone. This means Sam was lying about delivering room service. He made up this excuse to gain access to Mr. Smith's room and commit the murder. Detective Mehul arrests Sam. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Mr. Smith goes to Mehul and says, "Someone has murdered my daughter, Lily. She was found dead in her room."
Do you suspect anyone?
Yes, I suspect 3 people, John, Sarah, and Alex.
Mehul goes to meet all 3 of them. First, Mehul goes to John's house and questions him.
When was the last time you saw Lily?
I went to meet her yesterday afternoon. Lily had to return Detective Mehul comic to the library. After returning the book, I came back home.
Next, Mehul goes to Luna's house and questions her.
Luna, when was the last time you saw Lily?
I met Lily at the shopping mall 2 days ago. I haven't talked to her since then.
After that, Mehul goes to Alex's house and questions him.
When was the last time you saw Lily?
I met Lily at the park 3 days ago. We had coffee together. I haven't seen her since then.
Mehul examines the crime scene once again and carefully analyzes everyone's statements, and understands who is lying and who is the murderer. Can you tell who is the murderer by looking at the crime scene? If you look closely at Lily's room, you'll see a book lying next to her body, Detective Mehul comic. But John said he met Lily to return this book. If the book is still here, what did John return? He is lying. Mehul catches him and gives him a hard slap, and John confesses his crime. Let's move on to the next puzzle. During a heavy rainstorm at night, a lively party was in full swing at Paul's house. Everyone was enjoying the party when suddenly, a lightning strike caused a power outage throughout the house. And as soon as the lights come back on, Paul's friend Samuel was found murdered. Paul immediately called Mehul and asked him to come to the crime scene. Mehul carefully examines the crime scene and then questioned everyone present.
What were you all doing before the lights went out?
I was in the kitchen making drinks for everyone.
Paul says,
I was here dancing with Samuel and Princey. I only stepped away for 1 minute to get a drink from the table.
Princey says,
Wine spilled from Samuel's glass onto my dress, so I went to the washroom to clean it up. I don't know anything else, sir.
Kia says,
I went outside to get something from my car. I didn't see anything, sir.
Mehul listened carefully to everyone's statements and observed the scene thoroughly to determine who the murderer was and who was lying. Can you figure it out, Detective Army? Mehul noticed that Kia's clothes were wet, which means she was telling the truth about going outside to get something from her car, as it was raining heavily. However, Princey claimed that wine spilled on her dress from Samuel's glass, but there were no stains on her dress. Additionally, wine stains are not easily removed. This discrepancy suggests that Princey was lying. Mehul arrests Princey and she confessed to her crime. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Mehul receives a call from the National Library that a red accent book has gone missing.
Where was the last place you saw that book?
Sir, the book was on my table because I was repairing it, and its color was still wet.
Who was in the library at the time of the theft?
Sir, there were 3 people in the library at that time.
Mehul calls all 3 and asks them,
What were you doing at the time of the theft?
Emma says,
Sir, I was at my desk, coloring the book, and afterward, I placed the book back on the table.
Alan says,
Sir, I was cleaning the bookshelf. I don't know anything about the book.
Ryan says,
Sir, I was at my desk for a while. I went over to that table, read the book, and then I placed the book back on the table.
Mehul listens to all 3 and looks at their hands, and immediately understands who is lying. Can you figure out who is lying and who committed the theft? When Mehul examines their hands, notices that Emma's hands have not only red color but also green and yellow colors on them, indicating that she was telling the truth about painting the book. Ryan says he went to read the book and returned. And the librarian mentioned the color was wet, so his hands also have red color on them. But why does Alan have red color on his hands if he was cleaning the shelf? It means he is lying. He also went near the book and touched it. He's the one who stole the book. Mehul immediately arrests Alan. Let's move on to the next puzzle. In a corporate office, the boss receives a murder threat. The boss immediately calls Detective Mehul and tells him everything. Mehul immediately arrives at the office and starts questioning the boss.
Do you suspect anyone who might want to harm you?
Yes, I suspect 4 people: Victor, Mark, Andy, and Amy.
Mehul approaches each of them to question them.
What were you all doing just before this happened?
Sir, I came to the office and started checking my emails.
Sir, I arrived late to the office today, and after coming in, I went straight to get coffee and started working on my tasks.
Sir, I was in the lobby, standing there the whole time.
I was sitting at my desk and working.
Detective Mehul listens to all 4 of them and carefully examines the entire office, quickly understands who is lying. Can you tell who is lying by looking at the office? Mehul carefully examines the office and realizes that the coffee machine is broken. So, how could Mark have gotten coffee from the coffee machine? Means Mark was lying. Mehul catches him, and he confesses to his crime. Let's move on to the next puzzle. In a corporate office, the boss receives a murder threat. The boss immediately calls Detective Mehul and tells him everything. Mehul immediately arrives at the office and starts questioning the boss.
Do you suspect anyone who might want to harm you?
Yes, I suspect 4 people: Victor, Mark, Andy, and Amy.
Mehul approaches each of them to question them.
What were you all doing just before this happened?
Sir, I came to the office and started checking my emails.
Sir, I arrived late to the office today, and after coming in, I went straight to get coffee and started working on my tasks.
Sir, I was in the lobby, standing there the whole time.
I was sitting at my desk and working.
Detective Mehul listens to all 4 of them and carefully examines the entire office, quickly understands who is lying. Can you tell who is lying by looking at the office? Mehul carefully examines the office and realizes that the coffee machine is broken. So, how could Mark have gotten coffee from the coffee machine? Means Mark was lying. Mehul catches him, and he confesses to his crime. Let's move on to the next puzzle. The police find a girl's body in a hotel room, but they can't determine if it's a murder or a suicide. So, they immediately call Detective Mehul to the crime scene for help. Mehul carefully examines the crime scene and then looks at the items found near the dead body. And he understands that this is a murder. But how did Mehul understand? What clues did Mehul see that made him understand? Can you tell me how did Mehul understand it is a murder? Look closely at the tickets found near the girl. There are tickets for both arrival and departure. If someone had intended to die, why would they book a departure ticket? From this, Mehul understands. Mehul's intelligence deserves a like for his thinking. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Here is a brainstorming puzzle for you. Jake rides his bicycle fast through the heavy rain, wearing a raincoat as he heads home. When he reaches home, he is completely soaked, but his hair is not wet. Why Detective Army? He wasn't wearing a cap either, so why didn't his hair get wet? Think carefully. The answer is simple. He didn't have any hair, he is bald. Let's move on to the next puzzle. A child from DC school has been kidnapped. The school principal has called Mehul for help.
How did all this happen?
We don't know either, sir. We have only received this note.
Mehul reads the note.
We are kidnapping Lisa. If you try to inform the police, it won't end well.
Mehul goes to Lisa's classroom with the principal to question her classmates.
What kind of girl was Lisa? Did she have any friends?
Lisa is the monitor of this class, sir. She completes all her work on time, and she decorated this board today.
Sir, she seemed upset since this morning. She didn't even said what was bothering her.
Sir, today she didn't even brought her lunch.
Mehul listens to everyone and carefully examines the classroom to understand who might have kidnapped Lisa. Lisa kidnapped herself. Look at the handwriting on the board and compare it with the note. They are the same, which means Lisa wrote the note herself. Mehul understands this, and Mehul starts searching around. He finds Lisa playing in the park. And she also gets huge punishment for this. Let's move on to the next puzzle. There are 4 corners in a room. In each corner, there is a mouse. Each mouse is facing 3 other mice. Think and tell me, how many total mice are there in the room? Quickly comment your answer, Detective Army. The answer is 4, because there is 1 mouse in each corner. And each mouse is facing the 3 mice in the other corners, so the total is just 4. Wasn't that interesting? Let's move on to the next puzzle. Mehul receives a call from City Hospital informing him that a patient has been murdered there. Mehul immediately arrives at the hospital.
Mehul, last night a criminal was brought here for treatment, and this morning someone murdered him.
Who was in the ward with this criminal? Call everyone here.
The doctor brings 4 people to Mehul.
Did any one of you hear or see anything last night?
Paul says,
Sir, I was unconscious since yesterday evening. I didn't know anything.
Nancy says,
Sir, I was taken for surgery in the evening, and I regained consciousness this morning only.
Nick says,
I was standing outside the ward, and before my shift ended, I saw that all the patients were sleeping.
Kevin says,
Sir, I don't know anything. I'm the cleaner. I just cleaned the room and left.
Mehul listens to everyone, carefully examines the crime scene, and understands who is lying and who committed the murder. Can you figure out who is the murderer? Mehul examines the crime scene and realizes that the murderer is Kevin. Because there are bloodstains everywhere, on the table, on the bed, but why not on the floor? This means Kevin is telling the truth about cleaning, but he cleaned up after committing the murder. Mehul arrests Kevin. Let's move on to the next puzzle. Mehul gets a call from the manager of the movie hall. The manager informs Mehul that there has been a theft at the movie hall. Mehul immediately rushes there. The manager tells Mehul,
The reel of the new movie has been stolen from here.
Do you suspect anyone who could steal the reel?
Yes, I suspect 4 people who were around the reel at that time.
John the cleaner, Sarah the ticket checker, Mike is an audience member, David is a staff member of the movie hall. Mehul calls all 4 and asks them,
When the theft occurred here, what were you all doing?
David says,
Sir, at that time a movie had ended, so I was preparing the hall for the next movie.
Sarah says,
Sir, there was a rush at the ticket counter after the last show, so I was there for the whole time.
Mike says,
I came here to watch the last show's movie, sir. I don't know anything about it.
John says,
I was cleaning the washroom, sir. I don't know anything about it.
Mehul listens to everyone's statements, carefully examines the crime scene, and understands who is lying. Can you figure it out who is lying? When Mehul thoroughly examined the hall, he saw that only 5 to 6 people were seated. So, where was the crowd? But Sarah said she was busy due to huge crowd at the ticket counter. Now, how could she be busy with only 5 to 6 people? It means Sarah was lying. Mehul catches her. Let's move on to the next puzzle. One day, a VIP guest was having dinner in a luxurious hotel. Suddenly, the lights went out and the VIP guest was murdered. The hotel manager immediately called Detective Mehul and summoned him there. The manager tells Mehul,
At that time, there were 3 people in the hotel who were around that guest.
Detective Mehul questions all 3 of them.
When the murder happened, what were you all doing?
Waiter says,
Sir, I was serving food. I didn't do anything.
Manager says,
Sir, I was in a meeting at the office.
Chef says,
Sir, I was cooking in the kitchen. I had gone for just 2 minutes only to give salt to the guest.
Mehul listens to the statements of all 3, carefully reviews the crime scene, and understands who the murderer is. Did you understand who the murderer is by looking at the crime scene? The chef placed salt at the crime scene but missed the fact that the guest was drinking coffee. Why would he need salt for his coffee? The chef's plan fails. Mehul arrests the chef. Let's move on to the next riddle.
Carefully observe this image of 2 barbers and tell me which one is the killer, A or B. Think about it and let me know your answer in the comments. For more fun riddles like this, subscribe to the channel.